Welcome back, everyone.
Thanks.
I would like to begin by bringing to your attention a revolution in human scientific endeavor, which occurred a few days ago, around the 8th of October. Two Nobel Prizes were awarded for AI, artificial intelligence. The two physics laureates were awarded for AI, neural networks in AI, not physics experiments or theory. And then, just a few days ago, three AI researchers were awarded the chemistry Nobel Prize. None of them is a chemist. They use the AI programs to solve insoluble protein folding programs. And somebody whom I know indirectly, Demis Hassabis, you use the same program to beat the world champion at Go, the Chinese Japanese board game. So it was just a variant of that that solved the protein folding problem. Now, people who know, people totally outside of architecture, already announced that the world had changed, science had changed, intellectual pursuit had changed when the AI program beat the world champion at Go. That was about 10 years ago. But nobody paid attention except the Chinese government, which diverted $500 million to developing AI.
What is the protein folding problem? I'm not familiar.
Well, the proteins fold in 3 dimensions, and it's so intricate no human mind can look at all the configurations, but AI can go through 1 trillion different configurations, and then it uses some criteria and chooses the ones that are most probable. So I just wanted to point out, what does this have to do with architecture? Well, the architecture establishment is still going on with the Bauhaus nonsense. They have no idea of the applications of AI to totally debunk what architects are applying today because it is unhealthy. It's bad for human health. It is bad for human intelligence. It is destructive to infant development and intelligence. But they couldn't care less. They're trying to apply AI to just do a word a text to image conversion. So they create some fantastical forms and then they try to build them, just like sketching some fantastical form on paper. So they think that's what AI is used for. Well, listen, you guys and gals in the establishment that control all the architecture schools, you're going to be out of a job soon because AI will debunk all the pseudoscientific foundations of dominant architecture because it is unhealthy and inhuman. So they don't see it that way. They say, well, the fundamental basis of architecture are established by the Bauhaus, and it's unshakable. It's a religious dogma. So we are going to use AI to create ever more crazy shapes and build them and get some more Pritzker prizes. No. Your whole foundation is going to be washed away. So, Anne, what do you think?
Did you see in the BBC last week, they announced that they finally mapped the entire brain in a fly?
No, I didn't see that.
Oh, this is incredible. Fly brain breakthrough, huge leap to unlock human mind. So they've actually made, so a fly brain, I think, only has 130,000 neurons, and they've actually made a fly brain. Here it is. Here's a picture of the fly brain.
Oh.
And then they know, it's pretty amazing. It's really fascinating what the fly brain can now do. And so the next thing is the mouse brain. So pretty soon they'll be able to, and they also know the neurons that when the fly sticks out its tongue, how to map that to make it stick out its tongue. We're an amazing game-changing time. And I don't know if you saw in the Scientific American this spring had an article about de-siloing, that we need to de-silo academia. And there's a quote in it how the business world's already de-siloed, but the academic world is not.
Yes, but look, and even before AI, there have been calls by intelligent and wise people to de-silo, but the vested interests just keep up these barriers because they have a lot of money to make. They have the tenured positions to protect. So
Right, that's the problem.
it has not led to anything. So these calls have been done periodically for many years before. You and I know them.
Right.
But
Yeah.
maybe something will change because I mentioned last week what occurred is a revolution in humankind. If we don't blow ourselves up, this is really a revolution in humankind, and it affects the architects, and they're totally ignorant. They're just going ahead in their own pursuing their own usual interests at the expense of humanity.
Right. Well, a lot of things happen that way. So it was a fruit fly's brain that was fully mapped. This is what the
Yeah.
BBC wrote last week. And it's the first time it's ever happened. A full map of all the neurons connection in the brain. That's never been done before.
Right,
But that's
right.
the kind of things that we can now do that are just amazing. And just how do we apply that to build a better world? It's a lot to do. And I think Ara, thanks for your connection to the video person or the movie person. I think also getting it out, you need to get it out in different modalities. So getting, the science out there more has to happen. Yeah, and figuring out ways to do it to bring people in is really important.
So
But anyway.
let me mention something. We're in the middle of a revolution. Suppose a student in an architecture school actually discovers this and say, wow, what is my future going to be? And then they try to read some of these articles on AI and science. They can't. They have wasted years in architecture school learning garbage. They have not been trained to even read one of these articles. They're totally lost. They don't know the vocabulary. They don't know how to read a scientific article. And you teach at an architecture school. I have taught at an architecture school. The students are totally ignorant. I mean, they don't know the language. They're
Right.
floundering. They're totally lost. What's going to happen?
Right. But there's tremendous amounts of money in it. I mean, I told you Harvard got 450 million from the National Institute of Health and the National Science Foundation and the Defense Department in 2022. MIT beat them. They got 497 million for one calendar year. So that's $1 billion a year coming in for biotech research. Some of it's Defense Department research, but a lot of it's biotech research. Every year in Greater Boston, $1 billion. And so I think the academic institutions understand that research is where the money is. They get it. I think the architecture schools, some of them aren't quite there yet.
And you just mentioned the siloing. Architecture schools are totally siloed off.
Right. Right. They're siloed.
So the money, okay, $500 million is coming to the other departments, but the architecture school maintains its silo because they want to
But the
maintain.
fact is that's hurting them. And I think our generation and younger are very interested in de-siloing, into studying psychology, in understanding stress. They're using words like well-being. Well-being was never used when I went to architecture school. Happiness was never used. And now people are talking about things like that. So I think their shift is already happening in that generation. They're more comfortable talking about emotions, which were never mentioned. It was completely divorced. They were never mentioned.
Yes, but Anne, who is talking about it? Students in your architecture school? Certainly not in mine. Mine are.
I think well, Ara can talk for his generation. I think that they're more open to understanding feelings, I think. Don't you think so, Ara? They talk about feelings, and maybe your parents or generation. That's definitely true, I think.
In general, yeah, but I don't think we've connected it to the built environment much yet. I don't think we've made that. Like we talk about like work-life balance and that type of thing, but not really how the physical environment affects our well-being.
Yeah, but I think if you see that shifting, oh, guys, the AIA National Conference on Architecture is in Boston next year, and in June 2025. It's the largest conference, I think, in the United States in architecture. They expect 15,000 people. There's an expo and there's a conference. There's a call for presentations right now that's open, Ara. It's open until October 25th, I believe. And then there's also still some expo hall space available. I think it's $46 a square foot. There are a few spaces available where you can actually be in the expo hall where people traipse through, and I hope that that my nonprofit can get a space there. We have a new handbook coming out called the Handbook of Neuroscience in the Built Environment.
Anne, you're breaking up. You have broken up and you're frozen.
Nikos, are you writing it?
You're breaking up. We cannot hear you. You're frozen. And we have lost you.
Uh-oh.
Anne, if you hear us, can you get a better
Oh, she's
connection?
back.
Are you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay. Well, so there's this conference coming up in Boston, the AIA National Conference, June. It's the first week of June in 2025. It's going to be in downtown Boston at the largest convention center in the city. And it's an opportunity to not only give a presentation, it's also an opportunity to get a booth and be on the expo hall floor where you can present our books. We could present, we've done Happy Certification course. There are 7 courses on learning about the neuropsychology of architecture. There's just all these opportunities. I went to, in 2024, the AIA National Convention and Conference was in Washington, D.C. I went. There wasn't one booth on biometrics. There wasn't one booth that discussed beauty. There just weren't there. But there were a lot of booths. This blew my mind. A lot of booths about biophilia.
Oh, really?
Yep. A lot of booths about plant walls, a lot of booths about how you can get photographs that are projected from the ceiling. So it looks like you're entering a covered forest when you walk into a room. That was really, really interesting to see that. But nothing on biometrics, nothing on eye tracking, nothing on beauty, nothing on happiness, nothing on well-being, all these things. So I was thinking of trying to get a booth for the HAPPY, the Human Architecture and Planning Institute. And also it'd be our handbook. It is due out in hardcover and ebook that same month. We probably could have that there. And we could also, Routledge will also give you discounts and they can help you set up a book pavilion. So there's a lot of opportunities because I think your generation, Ara, and also students younger, slightly older than you, are very interested in this, in well-being, healthy lifestyle, designing for equity, improving walkability, improving safe biking. I mean, all the things we didn't talk about in architecture school. And I might try to do it with iMotions. They're the major purveyors of biometric tools, like to the car companies use iMotions. They do eye tracking, facial expression analysis, sweat gland, galvanic skin response, heart rate analysis to combine how surroundings impact us. They might be able to maybe co-booth with us or something. But there's incredible opportunities. But as usual, we don't have much time to set up for a conference that's basically in 8 months, first week of June. But it is an opportunity. Look, we're at a Bill Gates, Steve Jobs moment. It's a complete, pivot point in the industry. I mean, IBM and DEC never thought that people would be walking around with computers like this in their pockets. It took some weird college dropouts to think, hey, wait a minute, there's something big going to happen. But you have to have compassion. They were making so much money building mainframes, they didn't care, right? In the same way, I think the architecture world is building so much money, just clipping CAD drawings and building these faceless high rises. They don't care. My sister lives.
I have no compassion for people who build inhuman environments that are harmful to human health. Absolutely no compassion.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it's the spreadsheet guiding them.
Well, it's still no compassion, it's a spreadsheet guiding some organized crime, the
So
bottom line.
my sister lives in Brooklyn, and it's been fascinating to watch around her. She's right by the East River, how these tiny little high rises are coming up,
Oh,
80 stories,
oh,
whatever, just grid things going straight up. It's just amazing what's happening there, and completely obscuring her view.
yeah, 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 yeah. I want to ask Ara. Ara has been very quiet. So we have talked about things happening outside architecture. Ara, you are inside architecture. Do you see any of this, or is it totally outside of your range of professional contact?
I see developers regularly and financiers, and they're only concerned about how fast can we get it done, how many units can we build, what can we rent it out for, and that's all they care about. And the well-being of the inhabitant never comes up.
Here's the new buildings going up in Brooklyn. Do you
Ugh.
see it? Isn't that amazing?
Terrible, terrible.
It should just be open now. It's fantastic what they've done. And because it has, you see the view of the water, they can sell it for more money. It's oh my God, it's fantastic. Yeah, they're not finished yet. This is what's going up there. Yeah. But Era, I think I'd be happy to collaborate with you. I'd be happy to give a lecture to show you. Um, It's so funny. I do teach one class this year at the Boston Architecture College. I may have told you I have 27 students from 10 countries. Two students came back up to me on Friday, the last class I taught, and they said, this class should be mandatory. But the people, I don't think, know what I'm teaching. I had just given the lecture on how modernism really came about because of the trauma of World War I. And not only modern architecture, but modern art. Picasso was in Paris during World War I, and just experiencing that much death. I show them pictures, his paintings from that time. They're amazing. They're fractured. It's not random, you know. It's really, really interesting. And so the students are fascinated by it and jump right in, students from 10 countries. And I don't think often the people running the school are so busy with so much, they have to grapple with so much, they don't have time to look at the content of their courses. And
Yeah,
then
I
one
want to
student
get,
came up, what were you going to say? Yeah.
yeah. Well, I want to get back to Ara when you finish about your students, please.
Oh, then one student came up to me and said, but I'm confused. Why are they mostly teaching modernism then?
Okay, that's a $64,000 question. But I want to get back to Ara. Ara, outside your professional contacts who are just worried about the bottom line, you communicate, you are on listservs, young architects communicating with each other. Is there any discussion about what we're talking about? Or is
Yeah,
it
there's
totally
some.
out?
No, there is some. Some people are definitely getting back into Christopher Alexander and that whole thing. Like there's a new group that's into it. It seems like since that Peter Eisenman interview, I mean the Peter Eisenman, what was it? The debate that like even he said
Yeah,
it himself that Christopher Alexander fell off the radar screen.
yeah, yeah, but that was in 1984.
Yeah.
Ara,
But
now
this is
the
such a
time.
slow-moving field. It's such a slow-moving field, it's crazy.
And if you
Yeah.
didn't know, Ara, I'm the one who found the interview, put it on the web because it was,
Oh,
it was
really?
hidden, lost. Yeah, I put it on the web for Catharsis 2004. We put it online so the students found it for the first time. Because before you had to go, look up the article, and we put it online.
I couldn't find the audio anywhere, so I recreated it. I recorded it as Peter Eisenman and I recorded it as Christopher Alexander and I
Well,
put it up with it.
somebody found the original audio and made
Oh,
the
really?
second transcript. And I got hold of the two transcripts and compared them and made a clean copy of the best transcript. And that's what was published on Catharsis because there were two different transcripts. Now, I happen to know what Christopher says and the way he talks. So, I made the a definitive, and also the original publication of the Eisenman Alexander debate, cut some pieces at the end. So, I compared both transcripts and I made a definitive one. That's in 2004. That's the catharsis. If you look it up, that's what you find today.
Yeah. And it was like Eisenman is a great orator and he just like dominated the conversation, it seems like, and people were really into what he was saying, I think. But
Well, he was promoting himself. That's what architects have been doing for decades. He promoted himself. He became very famous. His buildings are terrible.
are they all terrible?
All that I have seen, if you compare, one is worse than the other. I mean, he made some houses for people with a column in the middle of the bedroom.
Oh,
You
yeah.
cannot put the double bed because there's a column in the middle of the bedroom. I mean, that's totally crazy.
He had a talk one time about phenomenology versus conceptualism, and he was saying phenomenology is the human experience, and that is really not what we should be thinking about. And conceptualism, the concept behind the architecture, is where our focus should be.
Yeah, well, that's false.
Yeah, I agree.
The advertising world knows that's false. It's all false. So, it's the mind is not a blank slate. His thinking foundationally is false. It's
Yeah.
preset what you need to see. It's preset that you need to see eyes. It has to be preset or you couldn't have survived. I think one of the problems modernism has is we have a Pleistocene brain. Your brain and body is sitting there, an artifact of 3.8 billion years of evolution, and it hasn't changed for 40,000 years. You're designed for survival on the savannah. And that's what we still are. So that gap between what we have today and what our bodies are built for. So the car companies exploit that, and the business world knows that and designs for your primate brain. The architecture world doesn't know it's there. But I think what I see is students are very excited about learning it, and I think it's going to pivot. I think it'll change.
Well, we'll see
Also, it
when.
almost makes me wonder, is there like my conspiratorial brain goes, are there people somewhere that purposely want us to live in environments that are somewhat inhumane to like keep us?
Yes.
Oh
Yes.
man.
It goes back to the Bauhaus. Really weird people, sickos, psychopaths. But let me get back to Peter Eisenman. Since this talk today will go public, I want to say something nice about Peter Eisenman. I had 3 Italian girls visiting me for a semester, and I was teaching them fractals. And they said, we're going to go to New York, and we want to go meet Peter Eisenman. Well, my friend Kenneth Masden worked for Peter Eisenman in his studio. So he made the introduction, and they went to see Peter Eisenman. And I gave one of my books, and I dedicated it to Peter Eisenman. So they showed up in the studio, and they went in, and he said, "You're students of Salingaros?" But he was nice to them. He didn't throw them out. He was really nice to them. They took a photo. So, I take off my hat. He was a nice guy.
Can I share my screen?
Yeah. Is it?
I've learned a lot listening to Peter Eisenman about like architecture history and theory and all kinds of stuff too.
Here, this is what I share with my students. We study an Apple ad, a Raisin Bran box, and a Pampers diaper box. And what they study is it's all the same. If you're selling diapers, if you're selling a high-end computer, if you're selling Raisin Bran, the design is going to be the same. Why? Mirror neurons. Without conscious awareness or control, a brain immediately, non-consciously looks at where eyes are looking. If your ancestors didn't do that, Ara, they would have all died on the savannah. So the diaper companies, the Raisin Bran, the Kellogg's company, they're all billion-dollar companies here. Apple's, I think, $3.3 trillion now. They all monetize our primate bias, right? That's what's going on there. So they all know it. And then they all study it. They have to, or it wouldn't work. I show my students this. 2 leaves talking. I'll hold on as long as I can, maybe grad school. Then if you Photoshop out the leaves, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It works the same way this works. This is running it through VAS. You run it through the VAS software that's now a plugin for Photoshop for $9 a month. It shows that non-consciously, all those people seeing 15,000 products in the store, non-consciously, they may buy the Raisin Bran without even eating it because the brain needs to be looking at, and someone smiling at you feels good.
Let me interject for somebody watching only this video. VAS is Visual Attention Software by 3M Corporation, and there are also other software available that track the eye when you look at an image, and there's a computer simulation software so that you don't have to actually put the eye tracking glasses. You can just get an approximation.
And with a VAS engineer talks to you, sorry to interrupt, they'll explain the first 3 to 5 seconds the human looks at something, it's exactly like a monkey. And so Pampers knows that. Raisin Bran knows that. Apple knows that. So you're going to look at the beautiful girl. Oh, and by the way, did you know this? The human bias is to look for men and women. The human bias is to look for women, right? I think we talked about this before. A woman model makes on average double or triple what a male model makes. So it's not random. They'll have an attractive woman there. You're going to look at what she's looking at, and then you'll think about going to the Apple store down the street. Get it? It's brilliant what they do. So I would argue this is just as important in architecture. You need to understand how humans work.
Okay, now I want to get back and ask Ara. We have identified the problem that all of this vast knowledge exists outside of architecture, and Ara, being inside, a practicing architect in a small firm, is not hearing any of this. I mean, he's hearing it from us, but he's not hearing it diffusing through the profession. How can this knowledge be communicated to young architects today? Ara, your opinion?
I'm not sure. The licensing process really focuses on, I don't know if you would add to it or replace, because I don't know, it really focuses on integrating the systems, like the air conditioning system and the electrical system and the structural system. Like the tests obsess over how you coordinate these documents and if there's an interference, and the wall assemblies, like different wall assemblies for different climates. It really obsesses over this. And so now my brain, it's like really focused on what's the wall assembly and how do the systems go together.
So are
And
you
architect-
licensed, Sarah? Are you licensed?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm licensed too. Yeah.
Yeah, the test obsess over that, right? It's all about the systems and the
test
wall
was
assemblies.
bullshit.
I mean, I
Well,
did learn a lot
the
studying
problem
code.
is a biology course can be an elective, but it's not mandatory.
And the tests were so different from architecture school too. So it's like the architecture school is one thing and these tests are one thing, and then creating a human environment is another thing.
Right.
So
It's
I
disconnected.
don't know. Yeah, where do you throw it in?
Well, so I think in a way, a movie series, a TV series, a Twitter series, social media,
Yeah.
I think there are lots of ways. I think there's just much more interest, especially since COVID. The silver lining with COVID is people really care about, in a way, feelings more and well-being more.
That must be the way to do it. Create a documentary that penetrates the culture and that
Yeah.
where people, even if non-architects have seen it and are demanding it, it'll make its way to
And
architects.
I also think it's a generational thing, you know. It's a huge generational thing. You know, when I grew up, my dad couldn't handle gay men. Now it's like there's intersex. My kids have friends who would change their gender, and everybody accepted. It's a completely different paradigm shift. It's a paradigm shift. You know what I'm saying? And this is a similar paradigm shift.
Excuse me. Back to education. If architecture schools oblige the students to take biology 1, it's not going to solve the problem. They will take biology 1, learn about amoeba and cats and nice things, but that's not related to architecture. They need a specific course like the ones that we are teaching that relates biology to architecture. Otherwise, they're going to lose the message. So we need new material.
But I think they're going to be fascinated by it. I think it's a paradigm shift, and paradigm shifts are kind of a struggle, but they do happen. And yeah, I think we can do it. And I think Ara's idea about a documentary or a series or understanding your buildings in a new way or presenting it in a positive way, Nikos, is really important, I think.
Yeah, well, I'm not good at that because I have so much bitterness in me. But Ara, have you seen The Beauty film by Donald Ruggles? our
No, I'll look it
friend.
up.
Anne, what's the name?
Beauty.
Oh, Don Ruggles' film?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's right here. Um, it's called
Beauty,
built
neuroscience. Oh no,
Beauty
built beautiful.
Neuroscience.
Yeah,
built
and
beautiful,
architecture.
built beautiful.
Build Beautiful, yeah.
Yeah, it's a wonderful
Oh,
film.
I'll watch it.
He spent a lot of effort doing that. Both Anne and I are featured in it. Some of
Oh,
our friends are in it. It's a very nicely done film. It has not played in architecture schools. It's been out for 2 years now. How long has it been out, Anne? 2 or 3 years. It
You
has
give
not played in architecture schools.
yeah.
It plays in film festivals.
But it's okay. But Nikos, I think you're getting angry. It doesn't help. I think we need to understand that we have an opportunity here, and I think that young people are going to be fascinated by it. Um, and it isn't basically Nikos look, just like with a telescope, just like with a microscope. It's a new lens to see reality, and the people that didn't have telescopes and microscopes didn't know the reality, of pond water or of the universe. I mean, and so we see this new microscope of biology, biometrics, psychology. They didn't have that microscope. They didn't know, you know? So,
Today, science has advanced so much, and the architects are siloed, and they don't teach anything of utility to their students, except what ARA says, the technical courses, the material science courses. But the theory courses are mostly garbage. At the same time that
but Nico,
all
I think you
this,
have to have compassion. There's a reason they did that. That was, modernism, and that was running from World War I and World War II. We wanted to, start from zero, forget the past. I get it. It makes sense. But now we know you can't really do that. Just like if you make plastics, you have to figure out how to throw them away. They didn't think like that, 50 years ago.
I already told you I have no compassion because we are today, well, not 50 years ago. There have been so many scientific advances. The news media are full of the scientific advances. We began today's session by announcing the two Nobel Prizes from AI that revolutionized the way we apply to science and solve unsolved problems that we could not solve 10 years ago. So I don't care what architecture schools did 50 years ago. They're still stuck in this ridiculous silo and mindless thinking and slogans and hero worship. I have no compassion for that.
Right. Well, I guess I do. At the same time, I think we need to change it. Listen, I see it as an opportunity, and Ara's intelligence, connections, it's an opportunity. How do you make the pitch? It's uncertain. We should have a PBS series,
Yeah, but
Um,
so who's going to get the funding for a
we
PBS
need to
series?
get the funding for it. Maybe we should approach it. And you need to approach. There's so many people. The Barr Foundation gave us, I think, $18,000 last year.
Well, that's
And we
enough.
need to get it again. We need like $250,000 or
Exactly, exactly. As Donald Ruggles found out, he needed a lot of money to make that film. But by the way, so today's meeting has been useful because Ara now knows about Donald's film.
I just bought
And,
it. I can't wait to watch it. It was
and
high definition for $10, standard for $8. I bought the high definition.
fantastic,
I'm gonna watch it.
fantastic,
yeah.
And you could rent it for like $3, but I wanted to
fantastic.
buy it.
But well, so listen, Ara, it's great talking to you, and let's figure. And if you have any connections in the film industry, I mean, there's so
Sure.
many people in California who are looking for new ideas. I'd love to talk to them. I can send you my. I have a I have a YouTube video that's been watched 3,000 times. That's not very much, but on how modern architecture came from trauma.
Oh, I'll
Um,
check that out.
and I can send that to one of your friends who are doing film. I mean, it's a huge thing that people are actually fascinated by.
I just thought of something about why this whole thing might be happening. Like where the
Yeah,
field of architecture is placed, and just when you look at professions in general, it's usually grouped in with sculpture and painting and that type of thing. So it's like we're seen as creatives and not really about providing a service for people inhabiting a space. And it's like for all of us, it's like, oh, I want to have my own signature. So even if something is not, maybe not going to be as appealing to a human being living there, it's like, oh, it's going to be my style. So I'm going to do it this way because it's like sculpture or painting or
Exactly.
that type
No,
of thing.
exactly. And it's not also about what really I think failed my UCLA Masters of Architecture was they never thought about, well, how will it make the street more coherent?
Yeah.
How does it fit? How does it make it a more walkable place for people, give the place identity? No, no, no. It was about making your aura statement and they always ignored the buildings around you.
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
It doesn't.
Okay, now I'm going to have a big fight with Anne, my dear friend, because I'm going to get angry, okay, to tell a young architect you're making a sculpture. That's how about the 10,000 people it's going to affect over several years? What if they feel sick? What if they feel anxiety?
But
We
I
don't
totally agree
care.
with you. No,
It,
that they're
it
not
is
even told
my,
about that. And they don't look at what's next door or if there was coherence. You know,
Yeah.
you really where it really got nailed home to me was I think I might have said this before. I was in London in March, and you can say, "Oh my God, here it is, 2024," and it feels like the London Blitz ended yesterday, because where all the London Blitz was, they repair the original buildings from the 19th or 18th century with just these, brick monoliths, and it just they don't age well now. They don't have any character. They're disruptive. The block isn't coherent like it used to be. And what were they thinking?
So do we have to start treating architecture like less of an art form and less of a soft science and start treating it more like a hard science where there are maybe only a couple or a few right answers to a site? Because it's like, oh, anything is possible. But it's like, is it more like a hard science where on this site there's only a certain type of things that make sense for
No,
human beings?
that's a really good point. Anything is possible, but there's a consequence of it. It's going to be dissociated.
Yeah.
Or if you remake Bilbao like Frank Gehry, before it opens, they're going to put a big giant puppy in front of it with a big face.
okay, I will give you Christopher Alexander's answer. There's a double infinity of choices of what you can build. The larger part of the infinity is inhuman. It's going to make people unhappy. There's a smaller part, but it's also infinite of adaptive, a design, a building that's going to make people happy, healthy in the long term, will adapt to the surroundings. All you have to do is take medical data and use them as constraints.
Well,
So
I will give a non-Christopher Alexander understanding, and that is that reality is a construct between your eye and your brain. And so your brain architecture, after 3.8 billion years of evolution, has preset what we need to see. Modern architecture does not fit our brain architecture. It creates dissociation. Traditional
beautiful.
architecture worldwide, China, Japan, India, brings us together. Why? Builds community. Why? Because it mirrors what the brain needs to see to make me feel out of a vigilant state. I saw the Taj Mahal when I was 16. I didn't speak Hindi. I knew nothing about the Muslim religion, and I was blown away. Why could this religious space feel so beautiful? Made no sense. Made perfect sense. The Taj Mahal mirrors with its fractal forms, with its bilateral symmetry, at top, middle, and bottom, face like what I need to see. And even the garden before it entering, I entered in a certain pace. I couldn't understand why I could feel better there than most places in the United States. It made no sense. It makes perfect sense. It's already in my brain architecture what I need to see. I believe it's one of the most visited sites in the world, the Taj Mahal.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. It's a World Heritage Site since 1983, I think, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So basically, our evolution, we're not modern. The mind is not a blank slate. Our evolution is preset what the brain needs to seek to take out of vigilance. And vigilance is our natural state. Because we evolved on the savannah, if we don't go into vigilance, we would have died. So to be out of vigilance, you need to see clear edge conditions, be able to see the vista, be able to spot faces. That's what you need to see.
Wonderful. Thank you, Anne. I totally, totally agree.
Is that okay? Oh my God. Nikos is,
I
oh my
totally
God.
agree. Yeah. So since I think we're
I think
out
we've
of
talked
time.
too much. I gotta go.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Okay.
Ara, look, I think, look, we need to do a pitch, Ara, and I'd be happy to talk with your students, or I'd happy to talk to your colleagues. I think there's just so much money that could be made with this, and I think there's so much interest because we're designing for everybody and well-being, and the science can't just be monetized, by the car companies.
This has to penetrate the culture and take off, just like what was it called? The international style thing,
Yeah,
where even Eric Owen Moss makes one. And he's like, "Oh, you want to be a radical architect? Okay, put a flat roof and put ribbon windows, and
yeah.
that's how you become radical. You
That's
got to do these."
become radical. Right, right. That
But
was the
it makes no
yeah.
sense.
But it
But
makes
yeah,
no
so
sense.
if this thing that actually makes sense should take off more than that whole thing did.
Right. And also, I want to design for people at all ages. I really am worried that for baby boomers like me, I mean, it's going to be crazy. We're not designing walkable communities like we need to be. That's a whole nother story we can talk about next time.